we're back here, Davey D, hanging out with you. We're South by Southwest in Texas, Austin, Texas, talking with Slug from the group Atmosphere out of Minneapolis. This is one of my favorite songs off your last album, That Night. And I mean, and favorite, not like it's an enjoyable record, because it's a very intense record about a true story, somebody getting raped and killed. But it was my favorite because of the intensity of it. And just, you know, you really drew a lot of people in to that, you know. Are we going to hear more records that really attack social, political context, you know, in the way that you did with that last record?
You know, that's definitely always been in the agenda. Me personally, I've always been really fearful of being preachy. You know, it's like my heroes said a lot of the things that I want to say, so I also don't want to just repeat the same rhetoric. You know, I don't want to just be, you know, it's like, and so, you know, without me necessarily being able to bring new resolutions to the table to some of the social ills, what I do is I try to present those politics, my politics, within the stories I tell, or, you know, within metaphor or whatnot, because it's like, if I can at least push the boundaries or be progressive about, you know, how I approach this subject, I feel like I could still do something that might be worthy of people to dialogue about. You know what I mean? It's like, you're never really going to see me be the guy that gets up there and is like, this is how you should live, this is how you should, because I don't really feel like that's who I am. I don't feel like I'm that dude. I'm not a preachy dude, but I do have my opinions, and I do have the way I see things. And not only that, but I'm surrounded by a lot of my brothers back home are actual activists, are actually in this, you know, and so I'm around it, I'm surrounded by it, and so it slips into my music, it slips into what I got to say, but I'm just really cautious about how I say it, because it's like, you know, I don't want to be that guy that turns you off from thinking about it. I want to figure out how to play. I put Easter eggs in here and hope that you find it. You know what I mean?
Well, that's a real good point. You know, one of the other songs I really liked off the last album was the gospel-inspired song. What's the name of the song again?
The song's called Get Fly.
Get Fly, yes. You know, so that was an incredible song, and I guess that kind of personifies being able to bring that sort of perspective without preaching.
I mean, you know, I think I've been blessed to be able to be exactly who I am on the mic. You know what I'm saying? It's like somehow I got lucky enough that the guy on the mic, I got to just be me, and these kids accepted it, you know? And so within that, there is room for me, like in a song like Get Fly, I can personify exactly who I am about this topic, you know, about this or about that, you know? And I think, you know, on one hand, that's the blessing about what I get to do. On the other hand, there is the curse as well, because now a lot of the kids that are actual hardcore fans of what we do, they feel like they know me. They feel like they grew up with me. They feel like they got that closeness. So now when they meet me, if I'm not the dude that they expected on the record, like if I crack a couple of jokes, or if I'm kind of like, people look at me like, yo, you're supposed to be like mad, or you're supposed to be, you know, it's like, you know, I am mad, but I'm also this guy, you know, you know, and I'm really trying to be stronger about, you know, really being more direct and really giving any level of me as I can in my music now, you know. It's like, because I've seen how people treat the artists, I've seen how I see what fandom does, and I want to be very cautious with that, because I don't want the dichotomy of making these kids think, you know, I'm above you or any of that, you know what I mean? Because that's not how I was raised, that's not how I see it, you know what I mean? And when I met my heroes, that's not how they did me, you know what I mean? And so it's like, I gotta try and figure out how to, you know, work with that, but I know I gotta give a little bit more of my humor in my records, because everybody thinks I must be depressed or something, you know?
Well, let's take a break. We're gonna come back and continue our conversation with Slug.